Hello and welcome to the Mindset Coach podcast, the show where coaches and coaches-to-be tune in to learn how to integrate mindset coaching tools and neuroscience-based techniques into their practice and grow and scale a coaching business they love. Each week I'll be sharing easy-to-implement tips, case studies and business strategies that you can use right away to transform your own mindset and the mindset of those you coach. I'm your host, Lara Young, founder of the Mindset Coach Academy, author of 52 Adventures to Change Your Life, award-winning business owner, coach and coach trainer. Tune into this podcast each Friday, free on all the podcasting apps, and click to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, mindset is everything. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Mindset Coach podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to our guest this week, Jo Outram, who is the financial fitness instructor. She's a money mindset coach. She is also a certified mindset coach as well and a member of the faculty at the Mindset Coach Academy. She's a chartered accountant, so she blends money mindset work with real practical money know-how. And she's also an author of, I think I've lost count of the number of books now, Jo, that you've written. But her latest one is called Moneyology, released last year in 2021. So welcome, Jo.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Yeah, delighted to be here.
Yeah, we always have a lot of fun on these discussions. And I think, I don't know, Jo, as you know, as you've all just heard, Jo is a chartered accountant. And sometimes I feel, I don't know, if ever you see a police light flashing and you're on the road, you wonder what you've done wrong. Or, if you've got children, you have to go to the principal's office. Sometimes when I'm chatting to Jo, I'm like, what can't I reveal from the financial perspective, either about my money mindset or my actual finances? So, it's always like, I remember Jo always says, check your money every day and do all of these things. So I think I turn up a bit like, oops, when we chat.
I think that's most, it's like you said with the police example. I think it's just a natural thing to do. But, for the past 30 odd years dealing with finances, you've kind of like seen it all. And I think when people even if they're not, like in your example, checking their bank account every day, if they're doing it some days, they're doing a lot more than most of the people out there. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the thing, isn't it? It's one of the areas I think that people can have a lot of shame around or a lot of guilt around is actually money. There's those emotions, aren't there, around money that come up very often for people. Do you find that in your experience?
Yeah, and often it's not always about the money per se. It could be just not generally feeling good enough to say be running their business, and that has then a knock-on effect around money. Plus, the stories around money then also have a knock-on effect on them feeling, are they good enough or are they worthy? So it is a vicious cycle that at some point you need to start to break down that cycle if you want to be able to move forward in your business.
Yeah, and
guilt and shame, the two emotions that you mentioned there, are the two big ones. Anger and sadness come into it a lot, and fear. And there's quite a few emotions that come into dealing with money that is often quite a surprise to people. When you start digging in deep. I mean, I think that can be said with a lot of mindset work. I don't think people always appreciate until you actually start doing the work how much emotions play a role, and they do play a huge role. So.
Yeah, absolutely. When we think about, obviously you work with all aspects of mindset, beliefs and values around money and emotions around money and history and patterns and habits and all of those things. And I think it's that, it is that whole comprehensive look at someone's relationship with money, because it is a relationship with money, really, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I mean, I spent the first part of my career, because obviously they don't teach you anything like this when you want to become an accountant or a financial advisor, and from both qualifications, but they don't teach you anything about this complex relationship that you can have with money. So all we're taught in the practical sense is the mechanics of reporting. But of course, everybody then does it differently. It's like a lot of relationships. It is very complex. And I think relationship with money is one of the more complex relationships, because it's a relationship that I suppose you can say it for all relationships, but it's a relationship we've had a lot longer than what we think we've had it, because we're bringing things through from previous generations and stories we heard as children about the previous generations. And, it stretches back, way, way back, more than what we first think about it. And then, it's just a complex web then.
Yeah. And
that's what makes it interesting as a mindset coach, when you start taking these pieces together and to be able to reassemble them in a way that's going to be helpful for somebody. Yeah,
absolutely. In a way that helps them to understand and have those aha moments, and then actually change those habits and behavior, and ultimately change their story and relationship with money. So then they can also help their children to have a different relationship and a different story with money if they have children. And so, very, very powerful. So, you made the transition from being a chartered accountant and financial advisor into money mindset coaching. Can you tell us a bit about how you came to be where you are today in terms of the work that you do?
What do you mean as to why I changed?
No, not necessarily why. I think I
think that could be a very
journey.
I think that could be a very brief story. I mean, that Money and I nearly got divorced. At one point, which kind of made me look at why. Well, originally it wasn't why that had happened, because I wasn't, totally oblivious to all this mindset work and having a relationship with money. I think the journey started originally as I didn't want it to happen again, because I had all the skills.
Yes.
In the practical sense, what I didn't have was this whole raft of skills that are sat in the background. And I think that's what a lot of what mindset is. It's all the stuff that we're not consciously aware of. We think that our skills are leading us forward. We can learn a skill, but there's all this stuff going on in the background that we can't see, that we don't know that's happening. And then once I discovered that, kept finding little bits of all of these things, as I was doing bits of work with different people, then that's when it became really interested in us. There's a lot more to money than just learning how to put it into a profit and loss account and read and be able to read it. Which was ultimately, it's a good skill to have, and every business owner actually needs to be able to read their financials to be able to move forward. Don't get me wrong, but the mindset stuff behind it is far more fascinating, far more complex, and is different. Whereas I think it's far more interesting. Each set of accounts does tell a different story, but each person's mindset tells a much deeper story and then being able to link things through. It does get very interesting when you look at somebody's financials and then look at their money personality, and when you know their backstory and what's going on, those kind of figures, then as an accountant we can read them. As a business owner, you should be able to read them. But I think when you're a certified mindset coach who's training money, then those numbers actually just leap off the page. Yes. And they're just telling, it just becomes a fully animated movie.
Yes.
Almost, in the depth of which you can get information about what is going on in that business and with that client. So
so powerful.
So that's why I love doing this work. And whatever, I still love doing the practical side, because part of my money personality is very practical, and it's very much about my key money personality is the maverick. But part of the Maverick's personality loves dealing with complex transactions. And so all of that, sorting somebody's money out, still interests me, but I wouldn't do it just on its own anymore.
Yeah.
Because to me, it just doesn't tell the full story. No. And I think once you've been opened up to the mindset work, particularly as a coach, then I don't think you would revert back, because why would you then not have the whole story about somebody?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And I think your ability to turn, two-dimensional figures into this three-dimensional story, and your curiosity about those financials was a key thing that then led you to become the exceptional coach that you are. It's almost like an investigative quality, like a forensic quality of being super curious about, how did that profit and loss statement end up like that? And how is someone behaving around money, doing money, have the habits around money, the beliefs around money that they have? So it's a very neat marriage, isn't it, between the two skills?
Yeah, definitely. And I very much now believe that, as a business owner, not only do you need to know the figures, you need to understand. You need to understand. So part of the coaching work is also an educational bit, because I think the more anybody else can understand how they do things themselves, then they can stop themselves going down making the mistakes and going down the rabbit holes, which sometimes we do, just because our money mindset takes us in that route. So yeah.
And what's also interesting, I think, is that people can have struggles with their money mindset, whether they're earning 50K a year or 500,000K a year or 5 million K a year. How do you find, is there any difference, or what do you find are the key things that come up for people at different levels?
Yeah, to be honest, the only difference is the numbers have got more zeros.
Yeah.
They're just bigger numbers at the end of the day. That's all. I mean, that in itself does present, it does present an issue. But when you're in your comfort zone of having had your salary at 40, 50,000, and maybe you go out and then start a business, and then that's the first barrier, isn't it? You can earn that kind of money on your own, and then take it beyond that.
Yes.
That's the same. The way that you can see what is beyond that is the same kind of distance as to when you get to 1 million and are going to several million.
Yes.
Until you get to that million, I mean, you'd think it'd be further, but it isn't. It's the same step. It'll be a different set. It's a different glass ceiling. It's the glass ceiling at the end of the day.
Yes.
And we just need to break through them one at a time. But each glass ceiling, it's the same, but different, if that makes sense. Yeah. The same because they are a glass ceiling. Different things will have caused it. Until we get there, we don't know. So it's an ongoing process with money mindset, because each time you get to the next level and you can see beyond that new comfort zone that you've created for yourself, you've got a new glass ceiling on, to be able to smash through. So the work that I do would be the same whether you were going from, to create that 6-figure mindset or multi-6 figures to 7 figures and beyond. In practical terms, I think they're different sets of problems. But from the mindset work, the techniques that I would use as a mindset coach are very much the same. I mean, some stories that I see coming up in people that are going to 7 figures could be similar stories that people have got holding them back, originally going up from 5 to 6.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
absolutely. And there are other. I guess there's always a new, with each new level, there's potential new perceived risk, there's potential new emotions that come up as well, potential new beliefs, as you say, those recurring stories. And so all of those things, it's mindset work is ongoing, and I think that this is, people think once you've done it once, that's it. But, as we move through life, really working with our mindset is just what is going to help us, whether that's in relation to our relationship with our money or relationship with other people or whatever area of life that we're in. So, and it's interesting because I think sometimes people see people online who are, particularly in the online space, I guess, who, are talking about their 7-figure or multi-7 or multi-6-figure months or years. And they think that they've made it, they've got there and that there are no challenges. Like once you get there, that's it. But of course, it's as you're saying, there are new challenges with each level that we need to be, I guess, aware of and prepared for.
Yeah, I guess the key is the earlier you can start working on your money mindset and in your journey. You're in an entrepreneurial journey or in any career. I mean, it doesn't have to be just entrepreneurial, but the earlier you can start working on your money mindset, the easier that journey is going to, the easier it's going to be. Because you're going to have, you're automatically getting rid of struggles, but there will be new ones that come up. But you just can't foresee.
Yes.
Even with a powerful imagination, if you can imagine being a 7-figure business owner, you can't fully imagine and deal with all the potential emotions and the problems and thoughts and strategies that you're going to need dealing with at 7 figures.
No, absolutely.
Until you actually get there.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is wrapped up in our identity as to who we see ourselves as and who we see ourselves becoming and what are the beliefs and values and habits of that person. And, you mentioned imagination, and that's obviously very powerful. And you've recently created a mindset toolkit about upgrading the power of your imagination. Can you tell me why you believe that using your imagination really helps with mindset work?
I think a lot of what we ask clients to do as mindset coaches is gets them to use their imagination. I particularly, as you well know, absolutely love like timeline therapy because it is just so powerful. As a technique to help people overcome their money blocks, their limiting beliefs, and to get rid of the unwarranted, the negative consequences of some of the emotions, and all these techniques. And we see it a lot as well with people that have been working with, say, law of attraction coaches, yes. And we're asking them to visualize. Well, visualization to me is just like the marketing term for imagination, because that's ultimately what we're asking people to do. When we're asking people to visualize, when we're asking people to go on a journey and just imagine what something's going to be like, we're asking them to use their imagination. That in itself creates a limiting belief, because we've been told, particularly if you're a dreamer like me, you were told as a kid, stop daydreaming. What we're doing daydreaming, get something practical done. And you kind of then get out of it. And I see a lot of people that have that as a kind of limiting belief that sat there, and it's not what we're actually wanting to address. We're wanting to address a whole host of other things, but what they've got sat in there in the background is this belief that they shouldn't be using their imagination, or shouldn't be using it, because they're not consciously aware of they shouldn't be using it. As with a lot of beliefs, we're not consciously aware that they're running in the background, and we've had it dumbed down. Because we're still using it. We never stop actually using our imagination, but we've dumbed it down as we've gone from childhood to adulthood. And I think what we need to be able to do is to ramp it back up, because once we can start using that power, it makes a lot of the things that we want to do to imagine moving forward, whether we're doing law of attraction type work or any kind of mindset work where we want to visualize. So like for my clients, I want them to be able to really feel and see what it would be like to be that next step, whatever that next step is, whether it's 6 figures, multi 6 figures, 7 figures. We need to be able to step into that person's shoes, and we can do that. We don't even have to leave, our home to be able to do it, because we can do it with the power of imagination if we build up that power of imagination. And the first part of that is realizing that we've had this power and we've kind of like lost it. It's a muscle that's just untrained, and we just need to be able to retrain it, reconnect with our imagination, and then it makes the whole host of work that we want to do, whether that's manifesting or doing other some mindset work, it makes it a whole lot easier when we can really tap into our imagination with all this visualization stuff that we can be doing. So
absolutely, and let it go free without that voice that says, oh, that's not possible for you, or that's never going to happen.
Exactly.
With that editor in our minds, to be able to let that flow. So that's fascinating. And I think, tapping into the power of imagination, the unconscious mind doesn't know reality from what we're daydreaming. It's how all ideas have come into fruition. if you can dream it, you can do it. We've heard that quite a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's true. Every single thing started with ideas, started with imagination, started with people, thinking about what if something was different, or what if they could do something, or what if there was something that could do this thing. That's how inventions are created. And often it is just that barrier, isn't it, between allowing ourselves to think big and not diluting it, and not thinking, oh, that's too big a goal, or that's too big a vision, or too big an outcome that I want to achieve. It's not possible for me. So, incredible just to be able to let that happen. And so you've got a mindset toolkit available. We'll put a link into this below this episode for the imagination toolkit for upgrading your mindset. What's one tip that you can give people to flex their imagination muscle? What's one thing people can be doing to do that if they wanted to start doing that today? Obviously, they're going to download your guide.
I think a great exercise, people can do, and it can do it over the over 30 days, is start to write, but write story.
Mm.
So this is about just creating that, allowing your imagination to go, but only write a line a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite difficult in writing just a line to make it something really exciting. So you really start having to use a muscle. It's like anything in training. It's like when you go to the gym, you think, well, why would I be doing that, repetitively? And it's the same kind of thing with your imagination, just doing things like that, or just taking 10 minutes a day just to sit and just see where your imagination goes. I do like that as an exercise, but some people also find that difficult as in, where would my mind go? So I think something like writing a story about it can be about anything, but just writing one line a day, that's to be something really interesting, just writing one sentence really helps.
Yes.
Because you really got to start to tap into that imagination to get that muscle working as to what am I going to write.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that until you actually do it, you're probably thinking, well, how's that going to actually help? But again, it's about building that muscle.
Yeah, about repetition and keeping doing it, as you say, so that you're building that up, and that you can be creative without editing yourself as well. That you can,
and then each day, and as you get further into that 30 days, you've got something to read, but to write the next. So the first few days, it is very, I guess, mechanical in the way that you're doing it. But once you've done a few days, yes, you can read your previous few days worth of lines, but to write the next line, you've really actually got to then tap into that story at a feeling level, in your imagination. And then that's how over the 30 days, then you build up that power to be able to write the next line and the next line. Yeah,
absolutely. I was reading that someone in the UK, a couple in the UK just recently won 186, I think it was, million on the Euro Millions lottery. And I know that sometimes a game a lot of people like to play is, what would you do if you won the lottery? What would you buy with money? What happened if you had $1 million, or you had 2 million, or 20 million, or whatever? And the interesting about that activity, and I'm sure listeners that you've perhaps all done that, just bought a lottery ticket and thought, what am I going to do with the money? And the interesting thing actually about that exercise, which again involves using your imagination, is that when you cost it out and when you work it out, a lot of the things that people want when they win the lottery, they could actually have them anyway. They could actually, make them a reality. But for some reason, they're only using their imagination in the context of, if I win this money, or if this money comes to me, this is then what's possible, rather than I can create a business, I can build, my own personal wealth such that if I want to do X, I can. If I want to have a cleaner, if I want to have someone to cook my meals, if I want to take a trip to this hotel, or if I want to buy that house, so it's interesting, isn't it, how some of those things that people imagine could be possible actually are possible, but they don't take the time to sit down and work it out.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that exercise with a few people over the years where we cost out, when they put together their definition of what would, financial freedom kind of look like for them. Obviously, when you work with them 3 years later, over the course of a period of years, as they keep coming back or as they, move forward to different levels, that view change because they go along their journey and they start achieving things, and then they can see that more is possible. But one of the things that I get people to do often is when they're doing that exercise of, well, what do I want in financial freedom? It's like, yeah, but how much does it cost?
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, it's like owning, say a property in, a holiday home in Spain. Oh, yeah. Well, why do you want it? Well, I want to spend 2 months in the summer every year in this one. Well, how much does it cost to actually rent that?
Yes.
And can you organise your work so that you can be out there and doing it? And then all of a sudden, some of these things that seem to be in that far off space of financial freedom that I will get one day becomes really practical.
Yes,
and it's something that they can actually start living it now.
Yeah.
And I think
often people think there's only one way to get something. Like if I want to spend summers in Spain, I have to buy a house. Well, actually, no, you could go onto Airbnb or you could go onto a website and rent a place and spend 2 months.
Yes, because exactly. We think we want to own a property, in that example, a property in Spain. But do we want to own a property in Spain, or do we want to be able to live the lifestyle in Spain that we want to live? What is the actual dream?
Yeah.
And I think things like this are things that come out once you actually take things out of your head, it can explore it, and then give your self permission to then explore it further in your head. And I think that's what comes out of coaching, and putting that little bit of practical element to it, and start removing the barriers. And even though we know we're mindset coaches, not everything is mindset. It's sometimes things come down to something practical. Absolutely. And you can get something practical done, and then it's like, well, now let's work on the mindset to make sure that can happen. Now you know what the practical step is. So ultimately, it does always come back to mindset, but you need to put these practical elements in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to, what mindset work does, of course, is help to identify the practical things that need to be done, and any beliefs about doing the practical things, or any procrastination strategies from doing the practical things. So it's quite enmeshed, isn't it? I just love it. I just love the relationship between, mindset and money, mindset and love, mindset and relationships, mindset and success. Anything really is just so powerful. And I guess, you talk about the power of imagination when it comes to money mindset and financial freedom and abundance. And that really does apply, doesn't it, across all areas of someone's life. So, for those of you listening, do download Jo's guide there, because I know that there will be some great practical tips that you can use that will really resonate with you and really help you to develop that imagination muscle. So is there anything that before we wrap up, is there one sort of tip that you would give people around money mindset? I know it's such a vast topic, isn't it, when we think about money mindset and the stories we tell ourselves and our habits and behaviours and how we feel about money. But what's one thing that you would offer our listeners, Jo, about their money mindset that would help them? One tip that you could give them?
Well, I think you know what the answer to this is, because you've kind of already alluded to it earlier, is in practical terms, we need to start creating some good money habits, because our money habits form a lot of our mindset. So the first is to make sure that you're actually dealing with your money, because that is a belief that holds. If you can look at your bank account, and I know this sounds really simple, and as you know, it's not always as simple as when I say look at your bank account every day. But when you can start to look at your bank account each and every day and get into that habit, you are then giving yourself permission to deal with money.
Yes.
A lot of people stall on dealing with their money mindset because they have the belief that they're no good with money, that it's something out of their control and they'll never be good with money, or they're not good with maths. And I think if you can start to prove to yourself that you can start taking control, you can start understanding what's going on with your money, then that opens the doors to allow you to actually go and do the work that needs to be done. Right. And that all starts off with that very simple task of just opening up your bank account each and every day, whether that's on your laptop or, get the app on your phone, and just checking your bank account. And you're also starting to deal with the fear around dealing with money. And it just opens the doors for yourself, to give yourself permission to go off and do all this all the work that you then need to do. And it seems very simple, but I
it's
say
not
it's
as easy.
simple. Just for the next 30 days, it's not as simple as that.
No, you can build a habit. So that's a great tip. Yeah, be really conscious of what's in your bank account. Start paying attention to your money, showing it a bit of love. And look, do yourselves a favour and go and grab a copy of Jo's book, Moneyology. We will pop a link into that as well. Moneyology is both a practical guide to looking at your finances, as well as a money mindset guide as well. So she mingles those two topics absolutely brilliantly. So it's called Moneyology by Jo Outram. Jo, thank you. It's been an absolute delight and a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Thank you. I always welcome the chance to talk about money.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you so much. And we'll have Jo back on the show again soon, I'm sure. And please do, if you have any money mindset questions, pop them in. If there is anything specific that you want Jo to talk about, I'm happy to have her back as a guest. You can always contact me on Instagram at Mindset Coach Academy, or you can email me, lara@mindsetcoachacademy.com. So thank you, Jo.
Thank you.
This week's adventure for 52 Adventures to Change Your Life is actually about being creative and creating an artwork. So this speaks to, I guess, a little bit about what Jo was talking about with us flexing our imagination muscles. So what I want you to do is I want you to create an artwork that you can hang in your home. You can paint it, you can do a collage, you can do absolutely anything. You could even grab some photos and hang them up in a frame. Whatever you like. There are so many different opportunities and ways that you can express yourself through art. Now, there are no rules for this adventure at all. Whatever your artwork is, you could paint a mug, you could paint a card, you could make a collage, you can go to the craft shop, you can go to Hobbycraft or the Range or wherever it is you get your craft supplies from. You can buy a canvas. Create something, spend time immersing yourself in a creative pursuit. And I'd really love to see some photos of what you've created. You can post those up in the Mindset Coach Collective group on Facebook. Or, of course, you can always send them through to me, lara@mindsetcoachacademy.com. Enjoy this creative adventure, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Mindset Coach podcast. Remember to join us next week for another episode, and subscribe on iTunes. Leave us a review if you've loved it. Share it with your friends. And I really look forward to learning how you're implementing the tools and techniques that you're learning here. Mindset is everything.